Hello and welcome to the podcast. In this episode, I want to talk about TikTok and the drones. Two perhaps unlikely bedfellows, and yet I'm going to suggest that both of them require us to apply critical thinking skills. Before I delve into that, let me just pause to say thank you very much if you have subscribed. It makes a huge difference. I am really grateful. And also, I know a few people, quite a few actually, have subscribed really recently. So welcome. I hope you enjoy the content. And again, thanks. So let's begin with TikTok. What's going on?
A federal judge has refused to block the law that says that TikTok has to be divested by its parent company, Chinese ByteDance, by January 19th or will be banned. Now, the judge had been asked to review this and rule on whether TikTok must abide by the DOJ's ban to give them time to appeal this. So this is a defeat for TikTok. We do expect TikTok to appeal this up to the Supreme Court. We have reached out to TikTok for comment. We have not heard back yet.
And so at the moment, things are not looking that great for TikTok. I think it's probably also useful to listen to this very balanced, in actual fact, summary from the BBC.
TikTok is owned by a Chinese company, ByteDance, and the big concern here is that users' data might be passed on to the Chinese government. TikTok takes masses of data from your phone, location data, apps you've downloaded, even biometric data. Here's the head of the FBI on what TikTok could do with that information.
Could they use TikTok to control data on millions of users?
Yes.
There is a documented case of ByteDance employees spying on US journalists, and TikTok says they fired those employees. But others say there's simply not enough evidence that the platform is a security risk.
I've been trying for many, many years to find that smoking gun because ultimately it would be the scoop of a lifetime, and I haven't been able to find it.
And that's why others believe that TikTok is actually not a security risk, and instead it's simply been caught in the middle of a diplomatic spat between China and the US.
Before we look in more detail at TikTok, in particular the performance of the CEO when answering some questions to senators, let's pause and reflect upon the platform that some people argue started it all. It is described occasionally as the father of social media. I don't think that's inclusive particularly, so we probably should describe it as the mother of social media. Yes, that's right, Facebook. Mother Zucker himself, Mark. In the wake of Meta's highly anticipated launch of the Threads app, which has of course now been launched, Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO, finds himself once again under public scrutiny. An old text message allegedly sent by Zuckerberg allegedly resurfaced on Twitter, where he derogatorily referred to Facebook users as dumb zucks for willingly sharing their personal data.
These results may contain images of child sexual abuse, and then you gave users two choices: get resources or see results anyway. Mr. Zuckerberg, what the hell were you thinking?
In general, and we've reported more people and done more reports like this to NCMEC, the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, than any other company in the industry.
But when you look at terms of service, this is what you get. Do you think the average consumer understands what they're signing up for?
I don't think that the average person likely reads that whole document.
Yeah.
But I think that there are different ways that we can communicate that and have a responsibility to do so.
Of course, there are 3,004 other planets in this star cluster in which we could have colonized. The largest and closest...
Data, don't babble.
Mr. Zuckerberg, I remember well your first visit to Capitol Hill back in 2010. You spoke to the Senate Republican High-Tech Task Force, which I chair. You said back then that Facebook would always be free. Is that still your objective?
Senator, yes. There will always be a version of Facebook that is free. It is our mission to try to help connect everyone around the world and to bring the world closer together. In order to do that, we believe that we need to offer a service that everyone can afford, And we're committed to doing that.
Well, if so, how do you sustain a business model in which users don't pay for your service?
Senator, we run ads.
And now let's go back to TikTok and consider the performance of their CEO.
You said today, as you often say, that you live in Singapore. Of what nation are you a citizen?
Singapore.
Are you a citizen of any other nation?
No, Senator.
Have you ever applied for Chinese citizenship?
Senator, I served my nation in Singapore. No, I did not.
Do you have a Singaporean passport?
Yes, and I served my military for two and a half years in Singapore.
Do you have any other passports from any other nations?
No, Senator.
Your wife is an American citizen, your children are American citizens.
That's correct.
Have you ever applied for American citizenship?
No, not yet. There are more than 150 million Americans who love our platform, and we know we have a responsibility to protect them, which is why I'm making the following commitments to you and to all our users. Number one, we will keep safety, particularly for teenagers, as a top priority for us. Number two, we will firewall protected US data from unwanted foreign access. Number three, TikTok will remain a place for free expression and will not be manipulated by any government. And fourth, we will be transparent and we will give access to third-party independent monitors to remain accountable for our commitments.
I have to say that I thought the TikTok CEO's presentational style and ability to engage was superior to Mark's. That doesn't mean to say that there's any connection, correlation, or reflection in terms of what is happening behind the scenes in either of those companies. But it was interesting. It's also interesting to note that TikTok are obviously being portrayed as the bad guys. Are they? Question mark. Now, at this point, I'm going to emphasize that I don't think it is a good idea at all if there is any influence from the Chinese government, any backdoors that we don't know about. If that is proven to be the case, then TikTok should be binned and shut down. Absolutely. At the moment, however, that does not seem to be the case. You heard in one of the videos somebody saying there is no smoking gun, at least so far. So why are we being given this narrative? Why is it? It could be purely, as it seems, that it's fear, that people are really scared that something is going on. And as I say, something may be. But here's an alternative, because I think it's always useful when you're being given a story, a line to follow, as I've suggested, a narrative to take on board and run with, to consider some other angles. It is possible that TikTok is pretty much squeaky clean. It is possible that they are not. However, let's look at Facebook in comparison. And let me pull up this particular article here. In a letter to Jim Jordan, the Republican chair of the House Judiciary Committee, Zuckerberg alleges that the officials, including those from the White House, repeatedly pressured Facebook for months to take down certain COVID-19 content, including humour and satire. The officials expressed a lot of frustration when the company didn't agree. He said in the letter, that's Mark said in the letter, I believe the government pressure was wrong and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it. I agree. I think that's a laudable statement. And what we can glean from that is that, well, this platform, that platform, Facebook, was under pressure from the government. And I think when people want to get rid of things like humour and satire, those are dark days, because humour and satire are very important in challenging some elements of the establishment when they, particularly, I should say, when they get out of control a little bit and too power crazed. However, what we then see is that Mark is saying, essentially, we'll push back going forward. So what do we have there? We have TikTok baddies and we have Facebook now looking more virtuous. The implication being that they will now really champion free speech and expression. Is that the case? Can it ever be the case at all? And I just wonder, the reason I'm talking about this is ultimately to lead to the drones, which I won't get on to. But as I've suggested, when we are given these stories, I just find it useful to think, okay, what is going on here? Who might gain something out of this?
Today, I've got some exciting news from the tech world. Meta Platforms shares have just hit a record high after a 2.4% increase on Friday, December 6, 2024.
What I also want to say is that those platforms and any of those social media platforms out there really need to get their act together. The harm that has been done to the mental health of so many young people it's absolutely disgusting. And I think that as far as that stuff is concerned, they must be more heavily regulated. In terms of what is the truth, who is a truth sayer or who is someone spreading misinformation, that's a debate that will go on. But to have that debate go on, we need things to be open to have the debate. But in terms of vulnerable people, I don't think there is a debate. I think that they need to be protected. And all of these platforms, and of course that must therefore include Facebook and TikTok, if they're still going to be around, need to do much more, much, much more.
Across the Northeast this morning, high alert and high anxiety.
There's two more right there.
As the federal government sends extra help to New York and New Jersey, where the governor has now been briefed by the FBI. The first drone was spotted there nearly a month ago. An FBI official says more than 5,000 drone sightings have been reported. But there is still no single answer to what's behind the sightings.
No state can become the Wild West of drone activity.
Over the weekend, FBI, DHS, and FAA officials said a large percentage appear to be normal commercial, private, and government air traffic confused for drones. But many Americans and lawmakers remain wary. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer urging federal agencies to use special drone detection technology like the Robin radar.
Now, some people think that this may be connected to, or may in fact be the beginning of Project Bluebeam, I think it's called. The idea being that the government or governments use advanced technology that we don't know about to invoke panic and fear, to simulate some kind of supernatural event and or an invasion, an alien invasion. Why, you may ask? Who would gain? Well, potentially governments, because if people get scared, they more easily give up their freedoms and say, yeah, if you're going to keep us safe, do all that. Now, having looked at some of the footage, as you probably have as well, it doesn't look much like alien tech, does it? It looks like, as some people have said, there are just ordinary airplanes up there. They are flying around. There are drones which look like ordinary drones. Of course, we hear about far bigger drones. Are they military drones? If they are military, well, which military do they belong to? Why haven't any of these unidentified aerial phenomenon or UFOs, as they used to be called, why haven't they been apprehended in some way, challenged in some way? So it's all very, very, very bizarre. And I think what Trump said recently is of interest as well.
Can you comment on the drones that are flying around New Jersey and the ports? And it seems like the American people have a big disconnect.
The government knows what is happening. Look, our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment. And I think they'd be better off saying what it is. Our military knows and our president knows. And for some reason, they want to keep people in suspense. I can't imagine it's the enemy, because if it was the enemy, they'd blast it out. Even if they were late, they'd blast it. Something strange is going on. For some reason, they don't want to tell the people, and they should, because the people are really, I mean, they happen to be over Bedminster. Want to know the truth? They're very close to Bedminster. I think maybe I won't spend the weekend in Bedminster. I've decided to cancel my trip.
Now, I find that very interesting. I'm not quite sure what it means. I'm not quite sure what Trump is kind of circumnavigating at this point in time, but he seems to be quite measured and quite deliberate in what he's saying and the way he's saying it. I can't help but be intrigued by the fact that relatively recently hearings took place and people who have some connections to certain areas of the government allegedly were speaking up about UAPs and what may be out there, and the fact that something does seem to exist and appears not to be from this Earth, or at least appears to exhibit characteristics and technology that we know nothing of. And within some of those witnesses, if I could call them that, were pilots, very credible individuals. And then, not too long after that, we get all this stuff in the skies. Is it mischief making? I don't think that what I've seen so far in terms of video, at least at the time of recording this, couldn't be explained by technology that exists. Mischief makers, the government up to something, saying that they're not, could be people who are from a different country and who shouldn't be there. But once more, why no engagement in that case? I also think it's probably worthwhile mentioning orbs. You may just be thinking about that right now. The orbs that people report. Well, let's take a look at one.
And Bill and Sandra, you know, when things like this are happening, it seems everyone starts to look up, like my crew and I have been here in Mendham recording this video that you're looking at right now. We have no idea what it is.
Now, of course, that does look odd. And if I saw that in the sky, I'd be going, what on earth is that? But again, it could be something to do with the interaction between the craft, the light the craft is emitting, and a camera lens. Maybe the craft is using some kind of laser device, or maybe it is a electromagnetic field that it has around it that the camera's picking up, and we don't know about that technology yet, but it does exist, and it exists on Earth, and maybe even in the US. So, what to do? Well, I think the first thing, as it says in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, don't panic, take a step back and consider emotional manipulation. As we've seen with TikTok and Facebook, we're being asked to buy into the narrative that TikTok are the baddies, and they might be. We're here being asked to buy into, at least by some people, the fact that something is going on that's kind of otherworldly, that may be the start of something big. Now, again, to be fair, and I hope I'm being fair to the government, that they don't disappoint me, they have said it's nothing to do with them. But panic begins to ensue. And so emotional manipulation, which we need to be aware of and be cautious of, happens when people build on that, when we get a lot of salacious headlines, when people start saying, oh my gosh, it can only mean one thing and it's not from this earth, and so on. When we get emotionally manipulated, that can cause us to get into a sort of positive feedback loop, in the sense that we look for more and more things to back up what we're saying. That doesn't mean to say we shouldn't be cautious. That doesn't mean to say that we should not be aware and understand that, yeah, we have to be on alert to a degree, but we mustn't panic. Who gains? Who gains from this stuff? Doesn't mean to say it is a government. It certainly doesn't mean to say it's the US government. But who gains? That can help us be more critical and slightly cynical and suspicious about what we're seeing. Now, you may be thinking that where I'm heading with this is therefore to say, when governments get more power, they want more power. An example would be the lockdowns. That's not what I'm suggesting, because I know, and I'm sure you know, that in actual fact, governments would never do that. Take the lockdowns. Behind the scenes, well, what was actually happening was that some people were taking the whole thing so seriously, but were scared to tell us how dangerous it really was, that they were practicing advanced respiratory rescue.
From you, Stephen?
And if you're watching from the US, yes, I can confirm the gentleman's name is indeed Hancock. And that is also, of course, a fantastic example of an aptonym.